Get toxic people to back off who don't understand bipolar disorder. That's what we're going to talk about today on Polar Warriors. Stick with me. So I got a question from a nice lady on Facebook that basically asked me how to get toxic people to back off that know that I'm not well and that have nothing wrong with them or don't experience life in the same way as we do, being bipolar. Now, for some people, especially dysfunctional, toxic people who might be family or coworkers or family or someone you simply can't eliminate from your life permanently, sometimes they just don't have the capacity to understand what we go through as bipolar warriors. It's like trying to explain colors to the blind or sound to the deaf. And most of the time with these types of people, it's just not worth our precious time or energy or efforts that we need to spend on our own health anyways. Now, when these people aren't just acquaintances, but someone you have to see every single day at work or live with at home, or a family that we have to see regularly, it's a whole different situation. And we need some Polar Warrior tools here to help us navigate around people like this. I've come up with a few things that I think might help if you find yourself in a situation like this. So the first one might be the most obvious and the most simple, but not always the most practical or doable depending on the situation. And that is to simply remove yourself from being around them. Simply to leave the room if they try to come into your space, or if they come into the lunchroom or break room. You just pick up your lunch and you go somewhere else. Make a statement that, or specifically make the choice to not put yourself in situations where you have to be in their toxic presence. Again, that's totally circumstantial, and these are for people that you do have the choice to avoid. Now, if you can't remove yourself and you absolutely have to interact with them, one of the first things that I would suggest, and it sounds way easier than done, but that's to give them no power over you. This is a mindset that takes work to cultivate, but if someone like that, is someone like that really worth taking a piece of your soul or your happiness? In your mind, the entire time you're around them, you've got to keep saying, you have no power over me. You cannot control me. You are not allowed inside my sanctuary that is my mind. You are not welcome here inside my head. And it's hard to do that. It takes a lot of repetition, but when you start dwelling on it or thinking about, I hate this person, I can't stand this person, they're making me so upset, I can't believe I have to be around them or deal with them, that's when you've got to start saying, you are not allowed in my head. I'm not going to allow you to be here and occupy space in my precious life or my sanctuary, my mind. So that would basically be the first thing that I would suggest. The next thing is many bullies, so to speak, or people who are just instigators, they're going to go from person to person to person until they get the greatest reaction. And then they're going to keep coming back to that person again and again and again because of their perceived weakness and their sick pleasure or satisfaction that they get from getting a rise or reaction out of you. It's so hard when someone says or does something that truly hurts to be the end gamer, to be the one that puts a stop to the cycle of action and reaction. Without a reaction, the actions stop. And that's the way I found when I was growing up. Even in school, I saw the kids that got picked on the most were the ones that would scream, "Stop it, I hate you, stop that." They would give them a reaction, and it just fed exactly what these bullies are looking for. So be the end game and put a stop to that cycle if you can. Again, easier said than done, and these are all tools that take time to cultivate, basically. But just the fact that you're here right now watching this video shows that you want to work on that. You are making progress right now by just hearing these words and strategizing with me and trying to find different ways to handle these toxic people that are affecting your life. So let's get into the next thing that I think helps with toxic people. So let's say this toxic person just left the room and your head is just full of this mental noise of annoyance and all of the things that they said just recirculating around through your head again and again and again. you keep replaying out the situation, or you keep thinking about what you could have or should have or would have said. You know, in a situation like that, again, you're giving them power. Even after they've left the room, they're still right in front of you, basically, being toxic, because you're allowing them to just run around in your head like a crazy monkey or something like that. And you need to stop it. You need to lock the cage up, you know, with that monkey inside. Put up your hand visually and just say, stop. Visualize that. I do this a lot. When I have negative thoughts or something that's so strong, that's coming from all these directions, that gets in my head and just to where I can't stop thinking about them and I can't get them out of my head, I visualize putting my hand up and just saying, stop. Stop. And I'll do it in many different directions. Stop. I'll do it to the front, I'll do it to the side, and the thoughts might keep coming, but I just do it again and say, stop, you're not allowed here, no. And be really firm like that. And through that repetition, if you do that again and again, you're going to start reprogramming these neural gateways in your mind to where your mind is going to say, oh, you know what? I can't keep going if I get in this negative thought spiral, because I'm going to get that stop sign, or I'm going to get the hand. So if you find yourself where that person is just still inside your head and still being toxic, even though they're not around you, stop it. Put a stop to it. The more you practice doing that, the quicker and faster the thoughts stop. It's really amazing, but you have to try it. Only about maybe 1% or less of the population that listen to videos like this, like self-help videos, actually do something about it, or take these tools and practice them, or write this stuff down and make it a part of their daily routine long enough to where it actually becomes good habits or positive habits that replace the bad ones. So as we're going through these tools, and we're going to get through a few more of them here, you really have to apply yourself. Otherwise, these are just going to be nice thoughts and that's all. So, or you're going to think, oh, this video didn't work. You really need to apply yourself here. So to continue on, another method that's really helped me is a visualization technique where I visualize whoever the toxic person is as a little child. Like to see what they were like, or imagine what they looked like when they were a little child, to see the innocence that was once in them. Imagine what they were like before the world fucked them up and turned them into narcissistic, unempathetic jerks. I mean, at one point or another, they had to be a curious, scared, or innocent little child in this world. And something happened along the way that turned them into these really toxic monsters. So sometimes just visualizing someone or seeing the innocence in them, just that change of perspective when they're being really nasty, gives me this sense of empathy or compassion that really works for me. I like that visualizing technique a lot. It might not work for you, but it's definitely something worth trying. And also be so grateful that you actually feel and care about others. I mean, can you imagine how miserable someone like that must be if they can't even empathize with someone who's bipolar, or what we go through? From that view, you cultivate like a sense of compassion towards them. You simply react back with a sense of loving kindness, and it's like reverse psychology. It's really weird. You'll almost start to see basically what we call this cognitive dissonance, or where they're expecting to get a reaction from you, and all of a sudden they see this look of compassion wash over your face, or sadness, or empathy, this calm resolve, and they get confused by that because they're not getting the usual push a button and watch you just react or explode satisfaction from it. So that's another really good one. It's just that simple visualization technique. All right, the next one is a really tough one. This is probably one of the hardest ones on the list here, and that is brutal honesty. Most people, when you ask them how they're doing, they're going to say, I'm fine, 90% of the time, even though they aren't, because most of the world is just bred to hide our emotions, and it's a total knee-jerk response or cliche response. And it's been instilled in us ever since we were kids. And it's actually even gotten a lot worse with the digital age, because people are always just posting their perfect little life on Facebook, and all these pictures showing all the nice things that they have and the great food that they eat and how happy they are with their spouse and their friends. We never see the truth anymore of what goes on behind closed doors, because we live in this digital social world that you can manipulate. If you really want to shock these toxic people, and this might be, like I said, one of the most hard or difficult methods here, but just tell them you have no idea how painful it is to be treated like this by you. You have no idea how much I hurt and suffer because you don't make any effort to understand how difficult my life is. Now, the most important thing about this is to not say it in attack mode. You cannot be aggressive when you're being brutally honest with your feelings. They have to see the hurt. They have to feel your pain. You need to be calm and honest and genuine with how much it hurts. And in a world of people programmed to hide their emotions, it can be really hard to be open and honest with how you feel. But on the flip side of that, the toxic person that you're being open and honest with, they're going to go, wow, I've never had someone just, I mean, how could they say something mean to someone who just says, you know, you're really hurting me right now with what you're doing? If you say it in a calm and sincere way, if they still are saying mean things or toxic things after that, I mean, that's a very sick person, and that's someone that you really need to get rid of or eliminate from your life. Unfortunately, I have a family member who, my brother, who I rarely ever talk to, and I know it causes my mom a lot of pain, and it's just a difficult situation all around. But I have to protect myself, or I have to have certain limits against certain actions or certain activities or things that I just simply will not allow in my life anymore, because it's just not healthy for my health. And that's really hard. And that's really sad, and it can cause pain for maybe other people around you, but everyone has their limits, and you do have to have some kind of self-respect. If you've tried many of these methods, or especially are being brutally honest with someone in a very kind way to tell them how much it really hurts and how much you wish they could understand, or even just try for a minute to understand what it's like to live a life of suffering. And most of the time, for a lot of people, you know, it's just time to cut that cord or let that person go and hope the best for them. You know, do it compassionately in the best way that you can. Now, the last thing that I want to get into here is getting into masculine versus feminine energy for just a moment. And for those of you that are women that are listening to this, in fact, it was a woman that posted the question on Facebook. I don't want you to take what I'm about to say or the beginning of this statement in any wrong way, so stick with me here. So remember, especially if you're women, or even have a more feminine energy or a heart like I do, that being soft or showing that you're vulnerable or showing vulnerability is not weakness at all, ever. And I'm not saying here, and please don't take me wrong, I'm not saying that women are weak or vulnerable, but there are certain stereotypes or certain ways that culture tends to make men, you know, the manly guys that don't cry, the tough guys, and women are supposed to be more emotional and talkative. Now, that totally is a role that is broken consistently in our society nowadays. We have extremely feminine men that have nothing to do with their sexuality, and we have extremely masculine women in the same perspective. And just to show to have that feminine or that soft energy or that heart, and to be in general a person that is vulnerable, that is not weakness. And I'll say that again, that is not at all, ever. Now, it takes way more personal strength to be honest about your feelings, to cry, to show that you're hurt by someone, than it is to be sullen or stubborn or closed off. Or, like I mentioned earlier, to say, I'm really not fine today, when someone asks, how's it going? Instead of that knee-jerk response of, I'm fine. If you're meeting someone, male or female, who have that aggressive, masculine, or abrasive energy, if you meet them with that same energy, it's like two stars just colliding, and it's just going to cause a giant explosion. Those energies do not mesh well together. It's the yin and yang. That's the polar warrior. The polar way right here is finding balance. When I was a kid, For example, just a silly example, I got spanked, and if I laughed, of course I would get spanked harder. And if I cried, it would stop. And why is that? Well, my dad was a firefighter and a very masculine man, and when he responded with that masculine aggressive energy, if I showed that soft, vulnerable side, he would stop. I mean, it just put a stop to it. And it was a lot easier for me to cry when I was a kid than it was when I became an adult and was conditioned as a guy that that's just not normal in our society. Well, you know what? F that. I'm sorry, but that is just one of the biggest problems in relationships today in the way people interact, especially with guys, is that they're just not willing to soften up a little bit, especially when it matters, when they need to show a little bit of vulnerability or to stop that tough guy energy. You know, they feel like they have to be like that. And a lot of toxic people can be very overbearing and over aggressive, dominating, have that male masculine energy. And again, I'm not trying to stereotype by sexes here. There are women that are just as aggressive and assertive and masculine and have that same kind of energy as my dad was. So if you're the kind of person, or if someone is used to you responding with anger or just giving them that reaction that they're looking for, or you know, trying to be tough when it really hurts, or like, you know, things like that, it can be like heroin to them. They're just going to keep coming back for more and more. It takes so much strength when you're ready to scream at someone, fuck off and get out of my life, you know, to just drop your shoulders, look them sincerely in the eye and tell them that it really hurts and that you want to find a way to help them realize that so you can both have a better relationship. Compassion and showing vulnerability are the ultimate tools of a true polar warrior, and not only showing it to other people but ourselves, because a lot of the time we're the hardest and most toxic on ourselves. And it's counterintuitive to what we see in the movies or on TV or the way people are just taught to react. So sometimes we have to break that mold to really grow and above and beyond the norm of things. And going through the bipolar experience is definitely not a very normal life experience for a lot of us. It's really tough. So we need to use tools like this, and we need to break these molds. We need to try different approaches to try and find solutions to make our life a little bit more peaceful, more productive, and more enlightened, which is what this channel is all about. So those are a few different ways or things that I guess I can think of that I would suggest when it comes to dealing with toxic people in your life. If you have any comments or suggestions, or even a way that you feel I missed that works for you, please let me know in the comments. And it takes a lot of work to make these videos, so please show your support. If this video helped you, even just one of the things that I talked about, or if the channel is something you feel that's going to be a positive influence on your life, please subscribe. Give the video a like, and also when you do that, it's going to help the video rank higher, and therefore more people might see it. And just by liking or subscribing to the channel, that simple little act can actually get the video out there where other people can see it just like you, that might need to see or hear something like this just like you. So and it might help their life. So just take a second and do that, and it also really motivates me to continue to keep making these videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome back to Polar Warriors, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next video.